Emma Koch, a voice that defied medical impossibility, has performed on the world's biggest stages before she could legally drive at 17. This Dutch soprano has sung with André Rieu before millions on international television, recorded albums that topped charts across Europe, and stood on stages in Amsterdam, Maastricht, and beyond while her body waged war against itself every single day. But this is tragic. This is heartbreaking, because Emma Koch wasn't supposed to sing at all. She wasn't supposed to perform. According to every doctor, every specialist, every medical expert who examined her, she wasn't even supposed to eat. Gastroparesis, a devastating condition that leaves her stomach paralyzed, unable to digest food. A feeding tube embedded in her chest, delivering nutrition directly to her veins because her body has forgotten how to do what bodies are meant to do. She lives in constant pain. She has spent more nights in hospitals than most people experience in a lifetime. She has missed birthday parties, school dances, normal teenage life, all while the world watches her sing like an angel. Shocking. The price she pays just to breathe, let alone perform. But behind the soaring soprano voice and the standing ovations lies a story not glamorous, but brutal, a story of singing through agony, of choosing art over comfort, of proving that the human spirit can't be paralyzed even when the body is. If Emma Koch has ever made you believe that obstacles are just illusions, hit like as tribute to her unbreakable will. This is the story of a girl who was told she'd never sing, and who sang anyway, until the whole world stopped to listen. December 2006. Zanstrek. Netherlands. The birth of Emma Koch was marked not by celebration, but by normalcy, the beautiful, fragile normalcy that wouldn't last. She was a healthy baby, a happy child. She sang before she could form full sentences, humming melodies that seemed to come from somewhere ancient, somewhere beyond her years. Her parents noticed the voice early, pure, clear, unusual for a child so young. But the beginning was not glamorous, but ordinary. A middle-class Dutch family. No connections to the music industry, no wealth or privilege, just a little girl who loved to sing. Then, at age 9, everything changed. 2015. Emma, a fourth grader in Zanstrek, started experiencing stomach pain. Not the kind that goes away after a few hours, the kind that makes you double over, the kind that steals your breath. She couldn't eat without vomiting. Food became the enemy. Her weight dropped. Her parents took her to doctor after doctor. The diagnosis came like a death sentence to childhood. Gastroparesis. Her stomach was paralyzed. The muscles that normally push food through the digestive system had simply stopped working. Food would sit in her stomach, undigested, rotting, causing unbearable pain. There was no cure, no fix, no way to make it better. At 9 years old, Emma Koch had to learn to live with a feeding tube. TPN, total parenteral nutrition, delivered directly into her veins through a port in her chest. She would never eat normally again, but she could still sing. 2019. Emma, 12, was homeschooled because regular school was impossible. Too much pain, too many hospital visits, too many days spent hooked to for bags while other kids played soccer and went to parties. But she sang. In her bedroom, in hospital rooms, anywhere she could find the strength. Her voice teacher, recognizing something extraordinary, encouraged her to audition for Holland's Got Talent in 2021. Emma, 14, weak from malnutrition despite the feeding tube, stood on that stage. The judges saw a frail teenager with a medical port visible under her clothes. They expected something sweet, something amateur. Then she opened her mouth. Voila by Barbara Pravi, in French, with a voice that belonged in opera houses, not in the body of a sick child. The audience rose to their feet before she finished. The judges were crying. She didn't win the competition, but she won something more valuable, the attention of André Rieu. 22 to André Acute Rieu, the maestro who had spent decades democratizing classical music, saw Emma's audition online. He called her personally. Would you sing with me? He asked. Emma, 15, couldn't believe it. Sing with the man who filled stadiums, the man who commanded the Johann Strauss Orchestra, the man whose concerts were broadcast to millions? Yes, she said, through tears. Yes, July 2022, Vrijsthof Square, Maastricht. Emma Kok, 15, stood before 10,000 people at André Rieu's annual summer concert. What the audience didn't know, she had spent the previous night in the hospital. Severe pain, vomiting, the feeding tube wasn't working properly. Doctors told her to rest. She performed anyway. Voila! The same song that had introduced her to the world. But this time, on the biggest stage of her life, with a full orchestra behind her. Her voice soared over Maastricht, over the medieval square, over the thousands of people who had come to hear waltzes and stayed to witness a miracle. André Rieu stood beside her, conducting, tears streaming down his face. The performance was broadcast across Europe. Millions watched. Overnight, Emma Kok became a sensation. But the world saw triumph. The truth was different. Backstage, she collapsed. The pain was unbearable. The feeding tube port in her chest had become infected. A constant risk when you have a permanent opening into your bloodstream. She was rushed to the hospital. 3 days in intensive care, antibiotics, new tubes. The same nightmare she'd lived with since age 9. Now playing out in the shadow of her greatest success. It is heartbreaking when applause fades and pain remains. 2023 should have been the best year of Emma's life. André Rieu invited her to tour with him Germany, Austria, the Netherlands, stages she'd only dreamed of. She recorded her debut album, Symphonic Tales. Released in November 2023, it featured classical crossover pieces, Puccini, Dvorak, Saint-Saëns, all arranged for her voice and full orchestra. The album debuted at number 3 on the Dutch Album Top 100. For a 16-year-old with a feeding tube, it was unprecedented. But behind the success lay a brutal reality. Every performance meant hours of preparation, adjusting her feeding schedule, managing pain medication, risking infection every time she traveled, sleeping in hotels while connected to for nutrition bags. Her body was shutting down, but her voice demanded to be heard. In March 2023, doctors told her the truth she'd been avoiding. The touring was killing her. The constant travel, the stress, the physical demands of performing. Her gastroparesis was worsening. She was losing weight despite the feeding tube. Her organs were at risk. They gave her a choice: stop performing or risk permanent damage. Emma, 16, sat in the hospital room and cried because it wasn't really a choice. Singing wasn't what she did. It was who she was. Without the voice, without the music, she was just a sick girl with no future. She chose to keep singing. What few people know is that Emma almost gave up. April 2023. Late at night, hooked to her feeding tube in her bedroom in Zaanstreek, she called André Rieu. "I can't do this anymore," she told him, sobbing. "The pain is too much. I'm letting everyone down." André acute, 73, listened in silence. Then he told her something that changed everything. "Emma," he said, "you're not singing despite the pain. You're singing because of it. Your voice carries every moment of suffering you've endured. That's why people cry when they hear you. Not because you're technically perfect, but because you're truthful. The world has enough healthy singers," he continued. "It needs you exactly as you are." The words didn't take away the pain, but they gave it meaning. Summer 2023. Emma Kok, 16, toured with André Rieu across Europe. Amsterdam, Brussels, Berlin, Vienna. Every city, the same routine: wake up in pain, adjust the feeding tube, take medication, soundcheck while nurses monitored her vitals, perform for thousands, collapse backstage, hospital visits between shows. In Vienna, she sang "O mio bambino caro" from Puccini's Johnny. Schicchi, the aria of a young girl begging her father to let her marry for love. The irony wasn't lost on Emma. She was begging her own body to let her do what she loved. The audience didn't know she'd vomited blood that morning. They didn't know the feeding tube had partially dislodged during soundcheck. They didn't know she was singing through agony that would have hospitalized most people. They only knew what they heard: a voice that sounded like it came from heaven. In August 2023, André Rieu's summer concert at Vrijsthof Square was broadcast internationally. Emma performed Ave Maria. 30 million people watched across Europe, Australia, and beyond. The next day, She was back in the hospital. Sepsis, a blood infection from the feeding tube port. Life-threatening. 5 days in intensive care. Touch and go. She almost died doing what she loved, but she survived. And the first thing she asked when she woke up, when can I sing again? At 17, Emma Cock continues to defy medical expectations. She released her second album, Wonderland, in December 2024, featuring holiday classics and classical pieces. It charted in the Dutch top 10. She performed with André Rieu during his 2024 Christmas concerts, singing before sold-out crowds in Maastricht. She still lives in Zaanstreek with her parents, still connected to feeding tubes 16 hours per day, still in pain every single moment, but she also still sings. She's become an advocate for gastroparesis awareness, using her platform to raise funds for research. She's raised over €500,000 for medical studies seeking treatments for the disease that has defined her life. She posts videos on Instagram, over 200,000 followers, showing the reality behind the performances, the hospital rooms, the feeding tubes, the medications, the pain. Not for sympathy, for truth, because Emma Cock refuses to let people think success comes easy, refuses to let them believe talent alone is enough. She wants them to know every note costs something. Every performance is a battle. Every standing ovation is earned through suffering most people can't imagine. And she'd do it all again. At 17, Emma Cock stands as proof that limitations exist only for those who accept them. From Zaanstreek to the world's greatest stages, from a paralyzed stomach to a voice that moves millions, from hospital beds to concert halls. If this story touched your heart, leave a tribute below. Share a moment when Emma Cock's courage reminded you that pain doesn't have to mean silence, that sometimes the most beautiful voices come from those who have every reason not to sing.